Dr. Randall, the Soul Doctor, author of Soul Doctoring, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet, shares her 40 years of experience as a cross-cultural practitioner, medical futurist, and expert in 20 different modalities of healing, along with amazing interviews with some of the leading minds in medicine and big thinkers in all walks of life. The stories of our lives are the woven energies of our soul's paths. They feed and ignite the spiritual light that nourishes the universal soul, the one mind, the cosmic consciousness where we all come together. This podcast is going to be a deep dive into the personal stories of people who have made significant contributions to the planet. What formed them? What moved them to become these leaders and innovators that inspire us so? Hi, Kellie.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you. We have Kellie Stecher on with Soul Stories today, and she's just an amazing lady. We're going to go through and learn all about her, and I'm just inspired knowing about her, actually. She's an OBGYN and the co-founder of president of Patient Care Heroes. Tell us a little bit about Patient Care Heroes, Kellie. I found that to be, when you were telling me beforehand, really interesting.
Yeah, so Patient Care Heroes was something that I wanted to start earlier in the pandemic, and I found a little bit of a partner in crime with Naveen Goyal, and he's the CEO of Loud Capital, and we were trying to figure out how we could really support anyone that works in healthcare. And some of the huge voids that we saw were around mental health, and we were worried about how the pandemic was going to play out and what effects it was going to have on the workforce long term. Because I think it's become clear to most people that exposure to trauma long term is really detrimental. And we're seeing a lot of anxiety, depression, and very, very unfortunately and horribly, we're seeing more nurse and physician suicide. And so we are essentially an organization that's focused on creating change around policy that is not beneficial to physicians and nurses and their licensing, and at the same time making sure that they have kind of an emergency escape valve, right? So if someone was struggling, we would want them to be able to be supported. We want them to be able to have mentorship and everything else to try to get them kind of out of that dark place. Aside from mental health, obviously, just burnout in general is a huge issue now, and we're seeing people leaving in droves. And I think we really need to walk back how we're taking care of people and make sure that we're not pushing people away from healthcare.
Well, that's huge. Having a experience myself, an inpatient experience. I'm telling you, I was just astounded, because I've spent most of my 40 years of medicine trying to bring holistic, and compassion. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, it's not happening. It's because the workforce is down 50%. And I had compassion for those people, even though I was being tortured by the effects of all of it. So thank you for doing that work. It's truly needed.
Yeah, I mean, the worry is who's going to be left to take care of everybody if we continue to have people leaving in droves, right? I mean, that's really the big concern.
Oh, I agree, and like I said, even though I was suffering from the lack of it and them just being left and not being overworked and too many patients and just so task oriented, it's hard to heal people when the system is sick. So thank you for your work. Okay, and then also she is the governor of the 7th district of the American Medical Women's Association, which is quite stellar, and she's advisor to many other companies focusing on patient and staff safety as well as mental health. So, what's ongoing there for you right now, Kellie?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about a couple different projects, actually. So, with Naveen Goyal and Loud Capital, we have a new startup organization that's going to be coming out this next quarter, and it's going to be called Beyond Physician. It's really something that's focusing on helping our physician community kind of bridge the gap. Like if they want to leave their career, if they need mentorship, if they need, just someone to kind of hold their hand and walk through the process with them, if they need someone to look at their CV, so I'm really excited about the care that we're going to be able to provide to people in their career to just help them through whatever's going on, right? I also am part of an organization called Canopy, which I'm super excited about as well. And they're focused on maternal mental health. So they're focused mostly on that, as we call, fourth trimester. And so we're trying to get this to be something that we focus on because, as you know, being a woman in medicine, we kind of just leave the woman to their own devices after the baby's born, right? Like we have a 6-week postpartum appointment. A lot of us are doing appointments earlier on, especially in the pandemic, like at 2 weeks to do a mood check. However, the vast majority of people do not have an amazing postpartum care plan, right? And so I think it's really important for us to not drop the ball on maternal mental health because we have had, even in the Twin Cities, a wonderful, amazing physician mom that died before she was going to come back from maternity leave by suicide. So we really need to look at how we're taking care of that and destigmatizing that time frame because people really need to be able to reach out and get care. It's just one of those things. And then this other organization, which is super amazing, I'm very proud of these young women at McGill. It's called Sex and Self. And they created this organization as a nonprofit, started in Canada, and we're kind of branching it out in other countries now, but really focusing on consent, safe sex, making sure that you have trauma, help and assistance and coaching and everything else if you have had a sexual assault, all these things. So they're really trying to focus on making sure younger women, well, all of us, anyone with a vulva, right? Anyone can make sure that they're protected and safe and they're educated on, have resources that they need.
Fabulous. Well, I think you just mentioned 3 projects to me. How do you get funding for these things?
That's a great question. And it's always an adventure, right? So, with Physician, Underdog and Beyond Physician, that is being funded through individuals who are really passionate about that project, right? And so the individuals who started that project and then brought me on as an advisor, they funded it. And also they have some amazing people working on the project that also contributed, right? So that's how it's kind of getting started. It's also through Loud Capital. With Sex and Self, that's just through doing talks, getting funding that way. And so as we branch this out more, we definitely are going to need more resources. However, with what we're doing with that, they're basically operating on very low budget because they're just trying to educate people, right? And so it's not like it's a huge high funding issue at this point. However, with, for example, Minnesota mental health advocates that I'm working with, unfortunately, when you're providing therapy and mental health resources for people, yes, we do need funding, right? And so, for example, with that, we have a big fundraiser event scheduled for tomorrow night, actually. So, so we're trying to, put all the pieces together, and a lot of the organizations that I'm working with complement each other. And so what's nice about that is sometimes we can pool resources and then go from there, which is lovely.
So is it mostly local or like if my guests want to get involved, is it somewhat national or?
Yeah. So all of them are national. Minnesota Mental Health Advocates, this is the only one that is focused their energy on Minnesota. The rest of them are national though.
And how would my guests get involved if?
Yeah, so they can always go to my LinkedIn because I have all the organizations on my profile. And that's Kellie Stecher, MD is what I'm under. The other thing is you can go directly to patientcareheroes.com. You can go to, if you were interested, you were in Minnesota, you could go to the Minnesota Mental Health Advocates. They have their own website, and then you can actually become involved that way. Sex and Self also has their own website. You can go on their website and learn about the gals that started at the university. So each of these organizations has their own site as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that and where we can find that. And also, just so my guests know, I am with a star right now. Kellie's won the Minneapolis St. Paul's Top Doctors Rising Star Award for the last 3 years. So that's pretty amazing. And I can see why with all of the activism and everything else she does. You have your own kids too, right?
Yeah, they're 7 and 8.
Wow. You are a crackerjack. She was recently the runner-up for the Sharp Index Physician Wellbeing Leader of the Year as well. So is that local or is that national? What is that?
So that's a national thing, which I was honored to even be in the discussion. And Bridget Duffy from Vocera was the individual who won the first, not runner up. She won the award. So, but I was actually just shocked that I was in the conversation. I thought that was really pretty amazing.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, and then also I just want to mention about Kellie. She's been an invaluable contributor to both local and national publications, news, podcasts, with her focus on advocacy, policy change, centering around safety and equity. So I guess you're kind of the go-to person for the news, I guess, if they have issues that come up. Is that how it works?
Well, unfortunately, I think I've become a little bit of that, but it's what I'm passionate about, right? Like I want to make sure, again, why I started Patient Care Heroes. I want to make sure no one's alone in a situation where they're struggling. And so I think it's great to at least have some sort of a hub where you can connect with people that need help. And so from there, I think it just kind of snowballed a little bit.
No, I think it's beautiful. And thank you for doing it. No better person, obviously, or I guess you're where you should be right now. She's also the author of an amazing book called Delivery, which is out now, which is meant to empower women, mothers, working women in healthcare, and to inspire change. Can you tell us a little bit about that book and how we might get that?
Yeah, so Delivering is a true story. I talk a lot about my own background growing up, and I think it's really important for us to be able to have these open, authentic conversations about what's going on in our lives. Because I think, especially in the pandemic, when we've gotten away from that connection with people, we have become more siloed, and we have really, in some cases, become less empathetic. I know we've seen that in a lot of situations politically and everything else, but it's almost like we have failed to we failed to see each other as human beings to some extent. The issue that we have, especially in medicine, as you know, is we're just supposed to, soldier on. We're not supposed to talk about anything that could be perceived as a weakness or question the hierarchy or try to fix anything or, have opinions if you're a woman or any of these things. Right. And so I think from my standpoint, trying to have these conversations and making sure that people are comfortable in their truth was my goal with this.
Love it. Not a lot different from the patriarchal system that we, came from, right? Only more elaborate because it's seeping into our systems. But
yeah, exactly.
So what population should seek out this book?
So I initially wrote this book kind of for my own healing journey, right? And I truly didn't think it was going to get published, right? Because I think a lot of people write books and we think, okay, great, they're written, whatever. And then I started having some of my girlfriends read it. And I was fortunate enough to have some of my girlfriends sign a HIPAA to say that I could use their stories, right? Because not everything happens to every person. And I wanted to have a collection of different things that we could talk about, right? So I wanted to talk about abuse and sexual assault and being a mom and being a working mom and breastfeeding and infertility, all these things. And even the loss of a child, because I know that is such a horrible and monumental thing that so many people go through, and really just the reality of grief and struggling in life. And so some of these things, thankfully, I have not personally experienced. I've experienced enough, but not all of those things. And so when we look at who this is geared toward, really, it's anyone who's human and wants to kind of get an inside look at some of these issues. So especially my women in medicine, of course, but my moms, my patients who read it are like, this is amazing. Like, just great that someone's talking about, breastfeeding can be horrible and it can be frustrating. And, someone's talking about mental health stuff postpartum. And so I think there's something in it for everyone. And that's the little bit of beauty about it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm a bit older than you, and I wish I would have had this book, because when I was, I guess I was the beginning of a fellowship. In my fellowship, I got pregnant and carried a baby to term and lost it. And I didn't really know where to turn. So like you said, it was just kind of like, buck up and grin and bear it. And it didn't really happen. But of course, that's not the way to go. But I did luckily have a lot of resources, because I've always been very spiritually active and seeking. So I could go to my teachers and to those sorts of resources, which did help me a lot. But I would have loved having your book then.
Well, and I think that we don't talk about pregnancy loss as much as we should either, right? Unfortunately, I feel like we've almost stigmatized that. And so when people come to see me and they've had a miscarriage or something like that, I talk about my own experiences too, if they want to know, right? Because most people are like, am I alone in this? How many people go through this? It becomes a very frustrating thing. And I actually
right. And like, what's wrong with me? And people are like, well, why couldn't you do it? What's your, are you unhealthy? What's, all that stuff.
Yeah. And are you ever going to have a successful pregnancy, especially if it's your first, right? You have all of these questions. And so actually one of my dear friends, he has got an organization geared toward grief and bereavement for people who've lost babies, pregnancies. And so that's a lovely, lovely thing that I can offer my patients here, because I think if you've lost a child in any capacity, it's very nice to be able to connect with someone who can at least relate to that and can maybe walk you through some of those issues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would have loved that practical sort of approach, and spiritually. And what I came away with, which I still think is valuable, and I have shared with some of my patients, is, every life that comes through us is significant.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe sometimes those little souls just needed a little bounce, to be able to come back another time. And I don't know, that just helped me a lot, is being told by my teachers that sort of philosophy.
Yeah. And I think however you can heal, however you can kind of process the information as heal is absolutely what you need to do. And I think we don't give people enough time either. So, and there's all kinds of legislative discussion on bereavement leave and everything else. And I really don't think that women are allowed to grieve some of these things like they should.
What do they give women now for something like that?
It's different for
every state.
Basically everyone. I mean, depends on like your company policy and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just in medicine in general. I mean, let's say you work for
honestly, it's hard, and this, because even if someone said, okay, you can have 2 days off, there is still this pressure to not do that, right? I mean, there's still this underlying, okay, well, why would you need that? We're short, we've got these issues, and we need to cover call, and we need to do rounding, and so even if there's a somewhat of a policy, I know that in people that I've spoken to around the country, it typically is not what is carried out, unfortunately.
Yeah, and 2 days is nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
And that's different system to system to, if you're in private practice or whatever. I know it does appear that private practice tends to be a little bit better because I think physicians probably feel like they have more control over their schedules. And so usually that's a little bit more forgiving in terms of time off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, anyway, well, thank you for all that work. Tell me, Kelly, first of all, what made you go in this direction? What made you who you are? When did you decide to become a doctor?
Um, I don't know, like a lot of trauma, I think made me who I am. But I decided when I was 4 that I was going to be a doctor, right?
Mm.
We didn't have like a ton of books. We had the first aid books from the Red Cross. And so that was like on the bottom shelf of our bookshelf in our little living area. And I remember taking the blue books with the red writing because they looked fun, right, out of the shelf. And I started paging through the different procedures that were in the books. And I thought, oh, I could totally do this. I'm just like looking at the tourniquet stuff and, the CPR stuff, whatever, right? And in that moment, I'm like, I think I'm going to be a doctor. I just decided then, apparently. And at some point, I thought I was going to be a pediatrician just because I think with some of the things that had happened to me in my childhood growing up, I wanted to be able to help kids through some of those issues. So in my mind, that's what I was going to do, right?
Could I ask you what those things were?
Yeah. So, and I write about it in the book as well, but my mom has narcissistic personality disorder. And so she is extremely emotionally abusive. She always has been. And so you feel like you're living on a merry-go-round, right? So, and unfortunately, this is an issue that we see in corporate America and healthcare systems, all these things, right? So a lot of times you get into this abuse cycle where you have abuse and then there's no apology, there's no acknowledgement, there's none of that, right? Which I think a lot of people can relate to just in work, to be honest. And then you as the child or the employer, whoever you are, have to go, okay, I have to just act totally normal, even though I just was abused, because then you are perceived as the abnormal, crazy, whatever, if you even have like a, well, why did you do that? Or what, question of what happened, right? And so it really creates this inner turmoil of walking on eggshells, trying not to, go in the direction that's going to upset that person. And then the issue with that is you become like this really big people pleaser because you're trying to just make everyone happy around you so that you can kind of prevent any of these horrible abusive outbreaks, right? So you go around your life doing that. And then all of a sudden you grow up and realize, I don't even know what I like. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know anything except I am smart and I care about people. And I'm super paranoid about making anyone mad. And so you just like live your life just kind of trying to go around people please. And then you get older and you realize, oh my gosh, I have to figure out what I really want in life. And so when I was growing up, I thought, I'm going to totally be able to pick up abuse in kids. I'm going to be like on the ball. I'm going to know what's going on. And maybe I would have insight into it. And then as I went through medical school, I did my OBGYN rotation. And with the first delivery I did, I was like, this is it. Sometimes you just know, right? It's kind of like meeting the love of your life sometimes, like when you know, right? And so I shifted gears and decided that women's health was what I wanted to do forever.
Beautiful, beautiful. When I delivered my first baby, I cried. I cried so hard, and I thought, "Oh, I can't do this," because everything else I did, I was so cool, but I don't. It's just so emotional to me, even to this day. But
yeah, I mean, and I think the process is so interesting because when I talk to people about it, they assume that because I'm a physician, there's a certain level of disconnection with medicine, right? However, when you have your own kid or pregnancy loss or whatever it is, you are not a doctor or a nurse or a healthcare provider in any way. You are the person going through this event, right? I mean, I remember with my first one, I had severe preeclampsia and I had to deliver early, and I was getting wheeled into the OR for a stat C-section. And I don't really remember that because for a moment I had gotten MIG toxic, meaning I had lost consciousness for a moment, I think. So my husband had to like consent for it and everything else. And I just remember waking up in the OR. My kid was on the table And so I could hear him crying, which was like the best sound ever in the world, right? Because I was like, okay, he's safe. We're good. I thought, holy smokes, like I can't believe that I had a whole baby, right? Like I think even though we deliver babies all the time, when you are the patient, it still is this crazy, miraculous, wondrous thing. I mean, it just really is. And each baby I get to deliver never ceases to amaze me because it's just amazing that a woman can have a baby truly and actually, survive and do well because it is a crazy amount of physiologic change that happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Physiologic, emotional, spiritual,
Yes.
everything. It's
Yes.
a beautiful, beautiful thing. Well, thank you for being part of that. So, so it's basically you as a kid having this trauma made you want to help other people?
Yeah, basically.
Mhm.
I remember when I was growing up, I had a younger sister and brother. I'm still very close to my siblings. And if something would happen, I would look at my sister and be like, well, when I'm a mom, I'm not doing that. Or when I grow up, I'm not doing that. Or I'm not going to say that. Or I'm not going to act this way. Or I'm going to make sure we fix this. And so I feel like my whole life has been trying to fix it so that someone else doesn't have to go through it. And that's really, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it in this moment, almost like I'm in therapy with you, but um, I think that's probably why I'm involved in the organizations I'm involved in. And I don't want someone else to be in these moments by themselves. I want them to have support and resources and care and all of those sorts of things. And so that's just how I've lived my life.
And thank you because, the things that have moved you are what we really need. And I really admire you for that and all of the work that you're doing and continuing to do. What do you see for the future for you, for Kellie? I mean, you almost like done everything or, I mean.
No. I mean, I, need to support my family somehow.
Well, there's that.
The lottery, that would be great because, then I'd start a whole new what I really would like to do, and I'm talking to several people about this now, is starting a well-being center here so that we can focus on healthcare workers in general because we need a physical hub as well. And the other part of that is, again, we aren't taking care of our pregnant healthcare workers like we should. We aren't taking care of their mental health. And so bringing in resources on the other side of it, in that fourth trimester side, to help support our healthcare community, I think is really important, probably now more than ever, as we've seen. And I think if we can help physicians, nurses, CNAs, I was a CNA back in the day and had no resources. If we can help them feel supported and cared for, then maybe we can, again, retain the staff that we're losing.
Mm-hmm. So do I understand you to say, which is some realization I just had too through my hospitalization, I would really like to see or take part in having a facility that supplies not only, nutrient-rich food, but energy-rich therapies at the same time as addressing problems, health problems, and the emotional, spiritual, and physical needs of the staff and people that run it. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have some amazing people that are interested in doing this with me. And so we're trying to troubleshoot and see, what we can do. And again, I think the crux of it is financing always, right? Because just because you have the amazing people doesn't mean you can pull off a center. And so likely we will start with, virtual things, whatever, but there's nothing like being able to connect with people in person, which I think a lot of us have missed so much, especially when you're having mental health struggles. Because as a clinician, when we were doing postpartum checks over the phone during the first wave of the pandemic, you get a little anxious yourself thinking, am I missing something? I'm not seeing their body language. I'm not seeing how they're interacting with their partner. Because as you know, domestic violence can be a huge issue and actually is at some of the highest rates when people are pregnant and after they deliver, right? And so you want to make sure that you're screening for safety and do they look comfortable in their own skin? Like, are we worried about something? Because those are the things that people tell you without telling you. And I think, especially in healthcare, we don't take care of ourselves. We just don't. That's like basically a fact that everyone knows, right? I mean, if I didn't go to one of my partners, I probably wouldn't even be up to date on pap smears myself, and I'm a gynecologist, right? So when you kind of take a step back from it, we need to create a situation where people feel safe, accepted, without stigma, right? Because that's a huge barrier to care on all levels. We need to make sure that people feel supported. And unfortunately, a lot of challenges happen in healthcare, right? And so people need to be able to go somewhere so they can debrief about maybe a horrible event that happened. But you can't debrief with your sister because she is not a HIPAA protected person, right? So you need HIPAA protected people that you can decompress with to make sure that you are really taking care of yourself. Because if you don't get that out of your system, what happens is it just builds up and builds up and builds up. And I've had moments where I'm just like, I don't think I can, I think I'm done. Like, I don't know if I can continue this fight anymore, right? And, especially the day-to-day things that happen, right? You get the 30 pages, you get the 100 in-basket things, you get all the labs, you get, you got the people in labor, you got the people in surgery, you're running around, your staff is short, right? And so when your staff is short, then more of the pressure falls on the physicians as well. And so you get this kind of like built up frustration, and then people leave because they just have had enough. They can't tolerate it anymore. And so if we can help not only people, but organizations. And so we're going to be doing consulting in systems and different organizations as well to help kind of pick apart some of these things, because burnout is an organizational systemic issue. That's not just on the person, right? We want to make sure that the person is healthy, but we need to take care of the system before we do anything else.
Yeah. Or simultaneously.
Simultaneously would be great. The problem is the resistance to change.
Mm-hmm. Always. Yeah. I don't think resistance to change has much of a chance with you around. With all the
I don't know. It's definitely putting up a fight. So
always does. But look at all the things you've accomplished. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy to know you, and that, you're there, and, we can reach out and connect with you, and you can help us in all the ways that you do.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. You're a true soul story. Your brightness precedes you, and anything I can do to help you in your work, let me know, and we'll stay connected.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. I'm Dr. Gail Randall, creator and host of Soul Stories. I just want to thank you for listening to my podcast. I recently got a notification from the International Podcast People, and I was astounded that so many countries are listening to my podcast in the category of alternative health. So thank you, and please continue to listen. I especially want to thank Egypt, Croatia, Japan, and Switzerland, also France and Ireland, because my numbers were quite high there. So keep up the good work, and check out my Instagram at Dr. Gail Randall, and particularly check out my Instagram TV, where you can hear me talking about alternative medicine subjects and also see me. It's a very good show, and I think you'll like the subjects. It's on 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every Friday, but it's recorded there, so you can find it there anytime you look. Okay, thanks again. I love you guys. This is Dr. Gail Randall from Soul Stories, and author of Soul Doctoring, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet. I want to thank Saltology, our sponsor, at bathsalt.com, which fits perfectly into my medicine bag as it, like me, calls upon the ancient wisdom and modern technology to heal, especially with the stresses and ills of our modern times. The Bokek brand uses organic salts combined with organic essential oils sourced from ancient Egypt to provide a perfect remedy for your bathing ritual and healing from modern stresses. The Relief RX brand is a unique one-of-a-kind healing salt that uses organic CBD, treated with a unique emulsification process to create nanoparticles which easily enter the skin to most effectively heal and relieve aching muscles and joints. Whether from chronic inflammation or just a rough workout, this is the perfect healing bath, especially when you add the organic essential oils of neroli, lavender, eucalyptus, or grapefruit. Your body, mind, and soul will be lifted and soothed like never before. Go now to bathsalt.com. I also want to give special thanks to Larry Antonino and Agora Borealis Recording Studio for music and score, and also to closetotheearth.com for IT and computer assistance. Also supported by Randall Wellness Network, bringing health and wellness to you directly. Medical futurist Dr. Gail Madeleine Randall brings 40-plus years as one of America's most forward-thinking doctors, healers, and emerging authors onto a diverse media platform to empower our paths to health, wellness, increased consciousness, and vitality. Gail Madeleine Randall, MD, has long practiced, taught, and encouraged patients to take control of their healing processes and journeys. Randall Wellness Network provides a 360-degree platform for people to heal themselves, and she most emphasizes regenerative approaches for healing individuals, communities, and the planet as one. For more information, go to drgmrandall.com and Instagram at drgailrandall, and check out the robust Instagram series on Instagram TV, also Facebook, Randall Wellness, and also Dr. Gail Randall.